Hey, what's going on, everyone? How's everyone doing? In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the EJ07M. So yeah, let's get started. So we're going to talk about the build, cable, and fit. So the build quality is really good. This is a one-piece aluminum, and it's very, very solid. It doesn't weigh too much. It has the perfect amount of weight, not heavy. So yeah, it's really good. I didn't have any issues with the build. Feels solid and premium. Better than a lot of other Tri-Fi products. So they did a good job. They put the right amount of effort to make sure the build quality is good. So yeah, that's the build. Now let's talk about the cable. So the cable is extremely comfortable. It never tugs against your ear. It has a lot of give to it. Just wraps around. You don't get any type of discomfort. And it doesn't tingle up that much, maybe slightly. So yeah, that's the cable. I didn't have that many issues with the build or the cable. I just thought it was well done. And there is this nice design here. So it has like this golden metallic look to it, I guess. So yeah, that's the build and cable. Now let's talk about the fit. So I was using these for a few hours, and I didn't get any type of discomfort. It just fits pretty perfectly on your ear like this, and you don't have to mess around with it too much. So I would say the fit is definitely well above average. It's really, really good. There's no bump here that you would get on some other IEMs. So it is a well-designed earpiece, and I didn't have that many issues with the build, cable, or fit. So really, really well done. So yeah, now let's talk about, we're going to get into the sound quality aspect of things. So let's start off with the bass. So this is a sub-bass focused IEM. There's no bleed into the lower mid-range, which I do prefer. Yeah, so I was listening to tracks like Two Steps from Hell, orchestra tracks like Hulu by Pierre Bourne. So if you guys do want to check out someone who makes good bass in their tracks, check out Pierre Bourne. He's a really, really good producer to test out bass in the track. So I was listening to those type of tracks, and one thing I did notice was the bass is very, very bouncy on these, but it is tight. It never got out of control. The definition in the bass was spectacular. I never thought it was distorted or any of those things. So it goes all the way low, and it's very bouncy, but it's tight at the same time. So the bass is really, really well done on these. I don't think there's that much mid bass, just the right amount. So there's no bloat or any type of issues like that. So yeah, that's the bass. When a track emphasizes bass, this portrayed it in a really, really nice manner. Went all the way low. It wasn't really boomy, maybe slightly boomy. But overall, the bass is really, really well done on these. And you do pick up good amounts of information when a track emphasizes bass. So yeah, overall, the bass is very well done. Yeah, so that's the bass. Now let's talk about the mid-range. The mid-range is pretty spot on these. It reminds me of the C Audio Yume because of how tonally correct it is. So it is one of the best mid-ranges I've heard. The layers of the instrument are pretty good. I do wish there's slightly more detail in the mid-range. When you have a busy track, sometimes the micro details do get a little not as well defined, or they don't pop up. But the instrument separation I thought was really good. The mid-range tonality was pretty spot on. I didn't have really any issues. And then, so any vocal you play through here, it's gonna sound pretty accurate, like close to what it was recorded. And so the mid-range, I wouldn't say it's thin or thick. It's pretty accurate. Like, I never thought it was V-shaped or too thick or too thin. The placement of the voices is almost dead, but it may be slightly up front, just slightly, like ever so slightly. And most people probably won't even be able to tell, but it is slightly forward, ever so slightly. So yeah, that's the mid-range. Any instrument you play on here is gonna sound amazing. I didn't have any issues with the way the instrument sounded, where even on some IEMs that are in the $1,000 price point, some of them do have a warm tilt to it, like the Sony IEM9. So this does have that warm tilt to it, which throws the instruments off a bit. But with this, I never really noticed any extra warmth. So it sounded really good. Clean, clear, and crisp is what I thought the instrument sounded on here. So it's very well done. The space of the instruments, the separation is pretty good. I do wish it was slightly better, but overall I don't have any issues with the mid-range. It's just clean and clear. So yeah, that's the mid-range. Now let's talk about the treble. So if you have pretty good hearing, you can make out the upper frequencies really well. It does have good amounts of treble air, and the sound is very effortless on these in terms of every frequency. Like, it feels like this IEM isn't even trying. So it's very effortless in the bass, mids, and treble notes. And I don't think I use the word effortless that many times, but with this IEM, the sound is very effortless. It just feels like it's flowing. Like, nothing's restricting it. It's just very effortless. It's just doing what the IEM was designed to do. So yeah, really good treble. It's very airy. I do wish there was maybe a slight bit of more air, just slightly, but in no way did I find that this IEM was lacking in the treble. It doesn't sound warm and it doesn't sound cold. So it's pretty right in the middle. So it doesn't emphasize the treble. If the track wasn't recorded perfectly, or the track had too much treble, with this IEM, I thought it slightly smoothened the treble out. But a lot of EST pairs do that. The top end is going to be more smoother, but it extends all the way. So yeah, really good treble. I just wish there was slightly more air, just ever so slightly. But other than that, I don't have any complaints. So if you do test out tracks like Two Steps from Hell, Victory, or Never Give Up on Your Dreams, this does an excellent job. I didn't have that many issues. I just wish it was slightly more detailed for this price point. Just a little more detailed. So yeah, that's what I thought about the highs. Now let's talk about the soundstage and imaging. So if you have some experience with audio, you would know that almost no IEM does soundstage and imaging good at the same time. So this leans more towards the imaging side of things. So where everything is placed is pretty good. Not excellent, but pretty good. So the soundstage won't be as wide as something like the Moondrop Variations. But the definition of the stage, I feel like this has less gaps in the imaging. Where that lower mid scoop on the Variations does throw it off slightly in terms of the imaging. But the soundstage is wider on the Variations. But imaging wise, I thought this was more effortless in the imaging, less forced, where everything's kind of floating. So yeah, that's what I thought about the imaging. So now to make some quick comparisons with a few IEMs. So compared to the U12T, this does have that high mid scoop, which kind of throws it off maybe for some people. I'm not sure. But this doesn't have that high mid scoop, so it's gonna sound more like lifelike, I guess. Less. How would I word this? It just sounds more accurate, I guess, in terms of the mid-range tonality, where the U12T has that high mid scoop, which kind of throws it off. And that's not really a fair comparison because the U12T costs way more. And then the best imaging I've ever heard is the IEM9. It does imaging better than the U12T. So if you do have a good ear, you do pick these things up. So this is the best imaging you could buy, the IEM9. And then I guess let's just compare it to the Variations. So I don't think either of these IEMs have a good imaging. But I do think the EJ07M has slightly better imaging. It has less gaps in the imaging, where that scoop in the lower mid-range does throw off the Variations a little bit. And then the treble, I thought the Variations had slightly better treble air. So yeah, that's what I thought. In terms of the mid-range, I do think the EJ07M just has a better mid-range. It just sounds more tonally accurate. And then the bass, I do prefer the bass on the EJ07M because it's bouncy, but it doesn't feel woolly like it does on the Variations. So the bass and the mid-range are extremely well done. The only thing I wish about this IEM is that it had better detail. But other than that, I don't have any issues. So if I were to rate the detail levels on this, I'd give it probably around an A-. Yeah, that sounds about right. So I do think the Variations is ever so slightly more detailed. But this IEM sounds better in the bass and the mid-range. So if something like the Monarch or the Variations isn't working out for you, I think get the EJ07M. It fixes all of those issues you would have with the Monarch Mark II or the Variations. So yeah, overall, it's a really, really good set. So the C Audio Yume is the most tonally accurate IEM I've ever heard. It beats out the IEM9, the U12T, but I think this is a good close second. In terms of the tonal accuracy, I do think it's spot on. Voices sound very, very natural and realistic. So yeah, that's what I thought about the EJ07M. It's a really good IEM. And maybe look into it if the Variations or the Monarch Mark II isn't working out for you, because chances are this fixes all those issues. So yeah, hopefully you guys found that helpful and have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.